So, if you're a regular viewer of the video version of our show, you may have noticed that a few weeks ago, I was the victim of one of the worst things that can happen to someone. I'm speaking, of course, about getting a bad haircut. Now, I'm not trying to sit in front of the camera here and insist that I always have a great do. My wife complains all the time that when she sees pictures of me from high school, I have the exact same haircut then that I have now. I've told her many times to just be glad I still have my hair because a lot of guys my age start going bald, give up on trying to have hair at all, and just shave it all off or wear a hat. My haircut works for me, and hey, I do get mistaken all the time for the actor Benedict Cumberbatch. So, you know what? I guess something is working. And if you've been watching this show and thinking I'm him, by the way, and that maybe he's just playing the role of a lifetime by being Sean Jordan, podcast host, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But let's get back to my haircut. My bad haircut. I got it at a chain that's supposed to offer quality haircuts. And no, it's not the one you're thinking of, but probably one step above it. Usually I get a pretty decent cut, and I even taken a picture of what a particularly good cut looked like one day so I can show the stylist how things should be done. But unfortunately, a few weeks ago, something went wrong. I could see it happening, and I even told the stylist that it didn't look right and she needed to fix it. When I got home, I could see what happened. She dug in too deep with the clippers in the middle and left the top too long to cover it. She's an experienced stylist, so she must have been embarrassed and was just trying to cover it up. Or maybe she thought I wouldn't notice. I mean, it's not like I have eyes on the side of my head or anything. But the problem is, I did notice. And now I need to find a new place to get my hair cut because I not only don't trust that stylist anymore, I don't even trust the chain. And isn't that crazy? I've been getting my hair cut there for years, and it's been mostly fine. But I've had one bad experience. Well, two. Actually, maybe 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 over the last few years, come to think of it. You know, the reason I had to take that picture of a good cut is because the previous time had been so bad, and I was trying to make sure it didn't happen again, and that was a few bad times ago. So maybe what's crazy isn't that I went to this chain, but that I've kept going back. Maybe I should not only avoid going there myself, but warn other people. And as I process all of this cognitive dissonance, I have to ask myself, you know, there are tons of people who cut hair, so why am I going there in the first place? I know the answer. It's not because they're the best, or the closest, or even the cheapest. Nope. It's because marketing got me in the door and kept me coming back even though I didn't always have a great experience. So, you know what? I don't blame the stylist anymore. I blame my bad hair day on bad marketing. And we're going to explore exactly how marketing got me in the door in the first place and how marketing could even convince me, sucker that I am, to come back and give them another try. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this is the Marketing Gateway. So I don't like to do complaint videos in the Marketing Gateway, and I do want to start by saying that haircuts are a sensitive topic for me because I grew up on a military base, and my mom would take us to the on-base barber shop. And no matter what I would ask for, those guys really only knew how to do 2 types of cuts, crew cuts and flat tops. Every now and then, my mom would splurge and take us to the haircut salon in the officers club, and we would get our bad cuts fixed up. But then I'd be right back in the base barbershop to get manhandled by a guy who thought electric clippers were the solution to every problem. So that's why when I found a haircut that worked for me, I stuck with it. And it's really not that hard to cut my hair. The problem is that if it gets too long, I start to look like Bozo the Clown instead of having any resemblance to Benedict Cumberbatch because it poofs out on the sides and then it kind of flattens out on the top. It's really not a good look. So all I ask for is for my stylist to trim my hair back to normal at a reasonable price without requiring an appointment I have to book weeks or months out. And that's why I've wound up going to chains instead of high-end salons. For $20 to $30 plus tip, I can usually get a reasonably good cut from a licensed professional who's available pretty much on demand to cut my hair when I finally get around to doing it. The service model itself works pretty well. So, why do I blame marketing for my bad hair day? Well, Let's first understand the basic model for the barbershop and salon business. Here's where we're going to get into the business side of this. In the old days, men's hair tended to be cut by barbers, and there are still plenty of those guys around. Near where I live, in fact, there's even a barber college and several barber shops. Salons, by contrast, have tended to be more focused on female customers and offer a wider range of services for more specific types of hairdos. I don't think it's out of line to say that barbers generally focus on doing a few cuts well, while salon stylists have to think more about the individual style of each person in their chair. And many of the mid-range salons are unisex, so both men and women can get cuts there, which adds to the variety of haircuts these salons can provide. But there's also the matter of experience. Barbers and high-volume salons see a lot more heads come through in a day than the high-end salons, and sometimes those really trendy stylists who will charge you a couple $100 for a haircut are really good at styling your hair with product when you're sitting there, but then they cut it so badly it looks awful the next day. So, we can segment the market for haircuts into three basic buckets. Low end, which is mostly barbers and high volume unisex salons. Mid-range, which is mostly salons that are either unisex with more services or focused on women only. And then the high end, which is often trendy or luxury salons that emphasize style, vibe, and personal attention to justify their higher prices. And let's also presume, because this is what the professional stylists tend to tell me, that at the lower end, the experience of the haircut provider is higher in terms of total heads cut, but the variety of styles available is lower. While at the higher end, the experience of the haircut provider may be lower in terms of total heads cut, but the variety of styles is higher. Salons often do make extra money selling special products and additional services like facial hair trimming, shampoos, and hair dyeing, but again, how these are handled varies a lot, especially at the mid-range level. In the higher-end salons, assistants might handle these services, and the revenues from them may be paying for all that extra overhead. In mid-range or low-end salons, they may just be part of the business by which the location is judged. There's one more factor we need to consider, and that's how stylists get compensated for their service. So let's say I pay $30 for a haircut to a mid-range chain. The salon may pay their stylist an hourly rate plus tips like the barbers and lower-end salons do, or they may require that the stylist pay a rental fee or commission for the chair to cover costs, and then they can keep anything over that. Either way, some of that $30 is going to the salon itself, and only a portion of it is going to the stylist. I had better tip if I want to actually pay them fairly for their service, and yes, I probably do need to overtip them if I'm using a coupon. Now, let's think about the role that marketing plays. For a higher-end salon, you're generally going to see boutiques where the stylists are working like franchise entrepreneurs, building up their own customer base and piggybacking off the reputation of the salon to build their own personal brand. The products they use tend to be high in quality, maybe exclusive to the salon, and have a higher price tag than what can be purchased at the store. Their location is also going to matter a lot. High-end salons and strip malls or distressed retail areas aren't going to do nearly as well as those in nice upscale areas because no one's going to want to pay a premium price for an experience that feels like it deserves a discount. And if you offer a discount to get people in the door, you risk devaluing your premium status. So for a high-end salon, location and word of mouth are key marketing strategies, with maybe some advertising, online presence, and referral programs being used to help business stay steady. For a low-end barber or salon where haircuts are their main business and cost maybe $15 to $25 depending on the location, volume is key. Every moment a chair is not occupied, the business is missing out on revenue, and every cut needs to be done as quickly as possible to turn chairs over so more cuts can be given. The problem is that this model generally relies on foot traffic that has specific peaks. The customers are also a lot less willing to pay for extra service because they want low ends to cut out the frills and just focus on the haircuts. So a low-end barber or salon really needs to have a convenient and visible location that encourages people to come in, and that's why you'll tend to see them along main roads, in strip malls, or distressed areas where rent is cheaper but parking is ample. These businesses also tend to use a coupon strategy or special promotions to get people in and out, and then hope to upsell customers on additional services or sell them product. Unfortunately, their staff are often so busy manning the floor that they're not particularly skilled at sales, and so haircuts are really their bread and butter work. And then there's the mid-range salons, which is where I wound up before getting this terrible haircut. They occupy this difficult middle space where they're either trying to be premium compared to the low end or discounted compared to the high end. Either way, their pricing is going to reduce their foot traffic somewhat for haircuts, but attract more customers who need specialized services like dyeing, highlights, specialty styles, and so forth. It's a really tough business model to balance because you're trying to attract customers who want a better experience than the low end, but who aren't willing to pay high-end prices for it. You need as much foot traffic as possible, but you also have to be careful not to turn too many people away when you're overly busy because they may never come back. The type of stylist who wants to work in a setting like this is generally someone who is willing to accept lower end pay, but who's hoping for some higher end tips they may or may not receive depending on the location. As a result, you tend to see the managers stick around because they get paid a little bit better, but individual stylists turn over quite often. The stress of having to deal with high volume foot traffic while also trying to provide personal attention is tough. There's also the problem of turnover and labor costs, often making these locations short-handed, which means more turning away paying customers. So, the chains that run these mid-range salons have come up with a solution. Allow customers to book same-day or next-day appointments by calling in or using an app or web portal, and this ensures that supply and demand are more evenly matched. But remember that the mid-range is still trying to keep chairs occupied as much as possible, and so walk-ins are still encouraged, and they're worked into the schedule as much as possible. On a regular day, that system kind of works, but during peak demand time, it turns into chaos, especially when the chain also decides to offer a promotion at the same time so they don't lose customers to low-end competitors. And maybe now you're starting to see where I'm going with all of this. I started going to this chain because of a promotion a few years ago. My whole family needed a cut, and we were able to save $20 by going there, racking up some loyalty program points, and getting my son's haircut for free. I have since been going back to build up more points because, it's nice to save some money every now and then, right? The day I got my haircut, there was a handwritten sign on the door saying, "We are not accepting walk-ins, appointments only." They weren't particularly busy, and so I asked my stylist why, and she said they were overbooked on highlights that day, which can take 2 or 3 hours per person, and they didn't have enough staff available to step away and deal with walk-ins waiting at the counter. So thank goodness I had an appointment, right? She also complained that she was tired and hadn't gotten a break yet because coverage was even thinner since one of the stylists had called in sick. And then she additionally mentioned every appointment offered online was filled because there was a special deal going on where people could get $5 off their haircut. I mentioned that I hadn't seen that, and she said not to worry. It was being offered to everyone who was already a member of their free loyalty program or who was willing to sign up today for it. This, dear listeners, is why she gave me a bad haircut. I was probably her 15th or 20th head that day, and she was worn out because she couldn't take a break, and she wasn't going to get one soon. She also knew she had to make up for the lower pay she'd get from tips because people tend to base what they tip on a percentage of their total bill. So she rushed through it. She did a bad job on the side, tried to cover it, and likely hoped that I wouldn't notice. Now, you know what? I can put up with a bad haircut, clearly, right? Because I've had so many of them. I'm even happy to ask people to fix it if I see that it's wrong. But did I want to do that this particular day? Absolutely not. I went home and I had my wife help me trim it up some of it, but even so, it has grown back weird, and I'm waiting for it to come back fully so I can go get it done properly. And you can bet that I will not be going back to that particular location anytime soon. But I want to be clear, it's not because of the stylist. She did do a bad job, yes, but it's because the company she works for thought it was a great idea to cut staffing to the bone and then run a promotion at the same time, making this mid-range salon feel like a low-end one and giving me little reason to come back and pay a little more for the same service I could get at a barber shop or at one of the lowest end places. That's bad marketing, done entirely without purpose or strategy or concern for anyone involved in the process. And it's definitely something we should all avoid when we're trying to boost our business, Because, the end result was, yeah, I saved $5 that I didn't even need to save. But they have lost my future business because the service I was asking for got done so badly. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this has been the Marketing Gateway. See you next time. This month's plug is for Rankin Jordan Pediatric Bridge Hospital. And no, I don't have any connection to them, even though we both have Jordan in our name. It was actually founded in 1941 by Mary Rankin Jordan, an Irish-American philanthropist whose uncle, David Rankin Jr., founded Rankin Technical College. Mary was very active in the St. Louis area along with her husband, an accomplished musician and cutlery industry manufacturer named Clay Jordan. Again, no relation, but you know what? I'm happy to share a surname with these fine folks. Rankin Jordan operates a 60-bed healthcare facility in Maryland Heights designed to help infants, children, teens, and young adults aged 0 to 21 with specialty care pediatric needs or who require services such as rehabilitation or interdisciplinary care. They operate under a bridge model to allow pediatric patients to receive care both inside and outside the hospital under close medical supervision. They don't turn children away, even if they can't pay for services, and they emphasize finding ways to encourage and empower children with positivity and finding ways to say yes when a child wants to do something. Oh, and they're just one of a few pediatric bridge hospitals in the United States and the only one in Missouri. You can learn more at rankinjordan.org, and they accept donations through the Rankin Jordan Pediatric Hospital Foundation at rankinjordanfoundation.org/donate.